welcome everyone to 8 through 6M. Some of you are come for a few of our exhibits and talks and artist talks, and a lot of you are new. My name is Jill Cochran-Johnson, and some of you know me as Managing Director of the Arrow Foundation, which is the family's environmentally focused foundation. Today we're here for the 8 through 6M and that foundation, and I have recently stepped in to help manage this effort as well. And so with that, I am going to hand over the program to Jade Fogel, who's our assistant curator, to give us an introduction. Thanks again for being here.
Thank you everyone for coming. So this is the second artist talk in the series of 4 artist talks that we're having in this space. The first one, if you attended, was Chet Hasegawa, and now we have Paz de la Calzada in this space. And Paz has been in the Bay Area for about 18 years. She moved here from Spain and has been continuously doing public art and paintings and other kinds of art forms for the last 18 years. Also working with herbs and plant medicine and really inspired by what plants can do for us and humanity and heal us. And we're just really grateful to have her here and hear her story, her process, and how she makes her beautiful art. And this is in conversation with Apexer, who curated this exhibition. And so thank you again for being here.
Well, thank you. Thank you everyone for coming tonight. Thank you, Ricardo, for finally we get to meet and talk.
Yeah.
More than like 3 minutes.
Yeah.
So that's good. And thank you everyone from 836M. This has been a real pleasure to be here and get to know people here and get to know what you guys do. It's been inspiring. So thank you so much. And I don't know, what do you guys want to know about me?
Well, maybe we could just start with some of the conversations that we've had, and just kind of like talking about San Francisco history and when the time period that you moved in and how you felt and what you saw with the art scene.
Yeah. So, well, as Jay was saying before, I moved here, actually didn't move here 18 years ago. I came here 18 years ago to do an arts residency up in the Santa Cruz Mountains. And I sort of wanted to be in San Francisco for 6 months doing an arts residency. And then I fell in love with the city for many, many reasons, you know. I mean, at that time, I was working in a gallery in Spain, and one of the reasons why I came to the Bay Area was because I wanted to discover different politics that I couldn't really have when I was back in Spain. I mean, I grew up during the dictatorship of Franco, and then I went through the whole political transition, you know, in the 80s, and so I went from like high school and college being a big activist in politics that were affected only Spain at that time. So I felt like I needed to expand a little bit my vision of the different politics in a country like the United States that is in Spain at that time symbolizes the big capitalism, you know. But when I came here, I kind of discovered a very interesting phenomenon, which is like, of all the places, San Francisco had a lot of anarchists, a lot of people who were anti-system, a lot of people who were designing ways of doing things differently, and a lot of respect and conversations about race and about oppression and about gender. So for me, it was all kind of new, because I mean, back in Spain, those textiles, they don't interweave so well, you know. Right. I guess because, you know, there's less immigration historically. So I feel like San Francisco had a lot to give me, and then I decided to stay here, and that became my journey, you know, as an undocumented immigrant for a few years, where I'm not saying that that was the wisest decision that I've done in my life, but I don't regret it, you know, and it has its good things and its bad things. But I remember of those days, I got in touch with like institutions like critical mass. I didn't know that that would exist. Have you done critical mass?
Yeah.
When was the last time you did critical mass?
A long time ago.
I know, right?
Yeah, a long time, years ago.
I haven't done critical mass maybe like in 5 years.
You just said that, and I was like, is this still around?
I know.
Does anybody know? Is critical mass still happens?
It is happening.
Yeah, it's cool.
It's just happening. It's just like it got put aside on the priorities of the community somehow.
Right.
And that's what I'm saying. Like institutions like that.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, critical mass. That's amazing. You know, the do-it-yourself kind of concept, where artists were like, oh, we don't have any money, but we're gonna do this, and we're gonna make it, and we're gonna like occupy this building, and we're gonna stay here for like maybe 5 or 6 years. So that all inspired me, and from that time, I met really great people and great institutions. I remember the Red Poppy Art House, that kind of reactivates the Mission District, encouraging people and homeowners and the community to participate directly in this event, where you go from one garage to the other, and there's like poetry, performance. So that was very, very vibrant in those days. I kind of miss those years.
Right.
I remember at that time I met, you know, two of my favorite people in San Francisco. One is Rebecca Solnit, which is like a great writer, and we are so. Yeah, and we have collaborated in the past in a couple of projects. I also remember meeting Matt Gonzalez. So I'm like, oh my God, I'm meeting the person who is gonna maybe become the next mayor. And that was like 2003 when he was running for mayor.
Yeah.
Did you go to any of like the
I
huge...
painted a mural for him, me and Andrew Schultz on Steiner or something? Somewhere over there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it was like, artists for Matt Gonzalez, doctors for Matt Gonzalez. I'm like, who is this Matt Gonzalez guy? I need to meet him and say hello. Then he ended up being my housemate.
Funny.
Things that magical things that used to happen, you know, back in 2003.
If I could jump in there, for people who this is the first time coming tonight, the smiles that you might see on my face as she's telling stories, the smiles that are on your face. That time period in San Francisco in the Bay Area was like this melting pot, and I see faces here that were from that time period, that creative energy was just flowing, and what you were saying was making things happen, and that, for me, like my background, born and raised here, but my artistic background was a young San Francisco kid running around the streets, mark making, you know? And that was like that transitional time. Well, a little bit after, but I was refining myself at that same time. And there was so many different genres of music, fashion, art, architecture that was happening, that this show here, that's what I wanted to kind of embody again. I taken in the histories of like talking about capitalism, like finance and all of that, and the ebbs and flows of that here in the city. That time period was coming at a high after a low. And that's when artists really activate and start to really come together. So I looked at this time period right now with 836M, that hey, we just came out of a low, we're in it, but people are starting to try to figure it out. Let's put this show together where I have my intentions of what I want, but also there's other artists who worked with this institution, and let's bring them, and I know them. Hey, we all have a loose kind of conversation that's similar. Let's come together and see what can come out of that, and utilize the windows here, and let people be able to walk by and see the art change, have these conversations. But it's all like the seed of this. It's like it's not original, you know, it's from that time period. And like you said, we would casually have conversations in group openings or settings. This is the first time that we actually got to sit in a studio and work together.
Yeah.
And I think that's what everybody needs to feel that, to hear it.
Yeah, it's a very interesting point because I've always, it's not that I criticize galleries that, or museums that are more like refrigerators. They acquire art like it's like letters or something, and they need to preserve it and like have it there, and you can look at it, open it and be there. But how about you just like deconstruct that idea and do the real thing, which is like, how do you put community together? How do you empower community and reactivate the public space?
Right.
Talking about public space in
Right.
San Francisco, that's also a big dilemma, the use of public space and how privatization of the public space in San Francisco has diminished the work that artists, especially street artists like you,
Right.
sometimes it can compromise the work that you do, when there's so much private investment and not so much public art, public space to
Public,
enjoy
yeah.
to enjoy that. So I really admire the work that the gallery is doing of not showing final work as a merchandise, which is also great, but opening the doors to dialogue and things like this. And when you invited me, I thought like, oh, I don't know. It seems like everybody is like a street artist, and I'm kind of like, I don't know how to categorize myself. I don't fit in like the street artist or like urban artist, or like I don't even represent it by a gallery. So it's kind of like, how am I going to do this? Like, am I going to be welcome here if I'm not a street artist?
But see, I didn't even look at it that way.
No, but it's true.
Yeah.
It is true, and I like the concept of piecing, as you were saying, like mixing things together, creating a new poetry with small sentences of things that you
Right.
have in the past, and like the things that you've been doing, piecing things together. So I always say that even that I'm not actually piecing my things together, I work with a very, I would say, unique concept of text as textile, because they both have the same origin. Text and textile,
Right.
they have the same Latin origin. So even that text is something that we do, with that part of our brain that we want to create, make sense of everything,
Right.
and categorize things. The textile is actually, it actually comes from a different part of the brain, but it accomplishes the same thing, is to transmit, to deliver a message that needs to be delivered, maybe if it's not by, understanding it, but more like a repetition, lines, weaving things. So that's interesting.
from to kind of go back to when you first came here and jumped into the scene and started meeting different people, decided to stay. What was your work in Spain and then here? And if there was any differences, I guess I would be more interested in what are the main components of it that you kept?
Yeah, it's a good question. Well, I mean, back in Spain, at that time I was living in Madrid, and I lived in Madrid for 2 years. And I had a studio, and I was also working in a gallery full time. I don't even know how I did that, but having a gallery practice, and then having my studio. I was mostly doing urban walks and collecting things. I was very interested in what people throw away and what can I do with those materials, and how can I change the story that these materials have, because people don't like them. They don't. You can't use them anymore, so I'm going to throw them away. So you're rejecting a story, and I like the idea of like, all these, like, I found like a Chinese store that they got rid of like 100 socks. No, they were not socks, they were stockings, like pink stockings, and I'm like, I gotta do something with this. I don't know what I'm gonna do, but like 100 stockings in the street. Who throws 100 or I don't know, it was like a big pile of pink stockings. So that's the artwork that I was doing. So, and then when I came here, I had to transform a little bit that concept. First of all, because I didn't have a studio. So for like 3 years, I was working in my kitchen, in my bedroom, which a lot of artists do, by the way.
Yep.
And it's not bad. It doesn't mean it's bad. It's actually, creates, your imagination goes like beyond, because you write everything in like a notebook. You have all these landscape sentences, and anyways.
I still have notebooks.
Yeah. So I kind of changed the idea that because I didn't have a studio, and I was looking at all these different politics and how the city of San Francisco, like the homelessness, the use of public space, and all these politics, they kind of influenced me, and I decided, I think my work, I cannot create like something really big right now. I'm not sure about painting a mural with, unsolicited murals. I don't know how that's going to work here. I'm not even a legal citizen. Right. I don't want to be in trouble. So I kept things kind of like on the low key. But I remember and with the help of some friends, my friend Eliza, who is here, just my first friend that I met at Jurassic Resident Artist Program. And we used to have these kind of conversations where like, hey, what do you think about San Francisco? And I would tell her all these things, and she was like, oh yeah, totally. Like San Francisco is it's a lot going on. So I decided to do more like video documenting different like rituals or actions or little performances in the city. So that's the work that I used to do. I remember my early days here. Maybe I had been here for a couple of months in San Francisco after I did the arts residency. I observed how the homeless, they're different than the homeless in the rest of the world. Like even the homeless here, they own property. They have a shopping cart, they have a TV in the shopping cart, they have a lot of stuff, and they have maybe a place where they store things. And I thought like, wow, it's very interesting, the relationship of collecting things that somebody doesn't want and how they actually create a sense of home in the streets. So I remember one day, with the help of Eliza and other friends, I said, I am just gonna, for like 2 hours, I'm gonna walk and you're gonna film, and I'm gonna see if I can find a shopping cart or something, which is not very difficult to find a shopping cart in the street, by the way. And it was a really incredible experience, and a lot of adventures happened in these 2 hours where I found lots of things that people throw away, including a TV, and including an American flag that I put at the end on my shopping cart. So I wanted to kind of like feel what it is to be in the skin. I mean, not in the skin, because obviously I was not homeless, but as an artist, at least I could say, well, I'm just gonna honor these people and do the journey that they do and document that as my own experience. So. And
how was it in Spain?
Well, it's a different dynamics there. I guess that obviously there's homeless people as well. There's not as many as here. There's no an icon of homelessness, and also like what homelessness means here in San Francisco is different than what it means back in Spain. Here it means somebody who's had a very tough life and probably been in some overseas war, and he has some kind of disability and a mental it's and abuse also. I mean, it's layers and layers. I think in Spain, a homeless person is a person who got broke and didn't have any family and decided like I'm gonna live there for a while until somebody, an institution kind of like helps them out. Right. But it's not like a movement here,
Yeah, I think here it's layered, and as an artist, we see it more. We're more aware of it, and that can be a whole discussion on its own. But I think as you're saying this, it's interesting to me because you have those, and for some reason I have like fluorescent pink in my head, those like leggings or pantyhose, whatever they were in, you know, in Spain. And then that was on the street, and you were doing work with that. And then you come here and fast forward through that, and you're pushing a cart around with American flag.
Yeah.
And if we are to go to some of the pieces that you have here and what you painted here before, I don't know how many people know that about you walking around the neighborhood and collecting and creating that into, and I see and hear that connection. If you could share that.
Share that, yeah. Well, I can say that my work, I like to be like site specific. And site specific not only means, for myself, not only means a work that talks to the place, like the physical place, but also like the history and the stories that a place can have. So one of the things that I really like to do when I get a commission about doing something site specific, I like to walk around, and that's what I did here. You know, I walked around, and I've been working with plants, because plants and my work has always been very organic and addresses the interactions of humans and nature. It's been kind of like narrowing down more like to plants and trees and people. But before it was more like nature and urban life, how they both interact. So I don't know what I was saying.
Walking around the neighborhood, collecting, sourcing.
Walking around the neighborhood, and then I found these plants here in a block, and I decided to collect these plants and make some medicine and try to get some dyes from the medicine, from the plants, and use them to paint this mural that I painted here in different parts of the gallery. Because I feel like art has that connection with the space and can offer an opportunity to change the story of something that doesn't go very well, like a struggle or pain, and can transform the struggle and pain into something more whimsical that brings something new, you know. So I've been using a lot of plants and herbs and trees and the story of trees in my work, in one way or another. Most recently I've been creating these tinctures, and I have a little a vitrine there, a little pedestal where you guys can also see that my work manifests in the medicine as well. And this medicine is used to create these paints, and then I paint with this medicine. So it's kind of like I'm just becoming a little bit of an alchemist.
So what plants did you find around the neighborhood?
So around the neighborhood I found 3 plants. Fennel, which is an invasive plant, and it grows everywhere where there's a harsh environment, or like a sidewalk. They're resilient, you know. They look for a little hole and they grow, they thrive. Then I found mint in a little garden on the next street over there, and then I found Artemisia near Chinatown. I found a plant of Artemisia, kind of like 2 blocks in that way, and I collected them, and I made a little sample, and I mixed it with alcohol, and I boil the plants, and I grind them, and I make this tincture. Or potion. I mean, I call it potion, tincture. Magic potion.
Magic potion.
Magic potion.
So after we finish in here, if you guys didn't see it already, there's a couple pieces left from her mural on the walls inside of the space, where where you first came in at, where the wine table is at. And then if you look into the main area where the beautiful digital fireplace is at, on the floor, similar to this piece that's here, you can see that green line work is used from this magic potion.
Yeah.
That she collected in the neighborhood.
Yeah. Because I mean, you know, we're kind of witchy people, right?
Yeah.
In one way or another.
It comes through us somehow.
Yeah.
So we are getting close to our timeline here for our end, and we can open it up to questions. And we're very open people, so
Yeah.
shoot away.
Those are so beautiful, the shape you've chosen. Is there a plant that you love, and how do you keep it sort of organic and three-dimensional almost?
I mean, I don't know. How do I do that? I think I think that I try not to think very much, because I always feel like my work is not representational, but it's not abstract either. It kind of is in between worlds. It kind of like fits from both. So I try not to be very representative, but they represent these organic shapes that they're like plants or the ocean. I mean, there's some organic stuff happening there, and those repetitive lines, they kind of like link with that conversation that we were having about the text and the textile. They're kind of interweaving, you know, and I don't know if that answers your question. Also, because with my work, I like to just juxtapose. Is that a word? Juxtapose? Okay. Something very chaotic with something very organized. The way that I paint the background of all the paintings is normally in the floor or in a table. And I just like, I connect with a specific element in this case. In that case, it's water, but it can be earth, it can be air. I'm very into the 4 elements. You know? So I kind of splash and I let it go. And when it's dry, then it goes upwards. And that's when it's the meditative line after line that is kind of like I say that I create lines to be either contemplated or walked, because I also do public art where people actually walk on these paths, you know. I can show later a little labyrinth that I did a few years ago, but it's kind of the same concept, even that the images they look so different. But yeah, that's what.
You were earlier saying that you were hesitant at first to participate. And just now how you were explaining that, I don't know how many know my murals, my public work. It's very similar. I say if it's 10 layers, I have my sketch, and then I step out of the way, and I just let it creation flow and go into the work. That's like the chaotic part, and then I step back, look at it, and kind of, oh, okay, let me add this here, kind of control the chaos.
Yeah.
And then re-enter the chaos again, let it flow out, and then the last moment, the line work, then I come in, and this has a simple version of it, but then I come back over with the black line work to kind of hold it, and to really like guide people. There's a lot of sacred geometry and all that in it, but it's to guide people in that movement. It's similar to you were saying about how people are walking.
Yeah, I can totally see that. Yeah, that separation of the, you know, you put yourself out there, the chaos, and then like your signature, you know, like your way of.
It's us, it's people.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. Any other questions?
I have a question for the pieces behind you. Are those painted canvas sewn together?
Yeah.
That's
So.
incredible.
Thank you. So a long time, I'm saying 26, but I think I have to add 2 more years. 26, 28 years painting in the public, and all spray paint is the medium. And even what we're sitting on, this is like my first 2 times doing
very
like,
cool.
It's cushion, this is nice. They'll get better. But forever, and I can show you later, we could touch the canvas. Spray paint is I'm a geek when it comes to tools. And spray paint, it's such a thin layer, brittle paint that's meant to be on hard surfaces. And when you put it on canvas, I've learned ways to sandwich it between 2 flexible mediums so that you could have it on canvas for longevity archival purposes. But I still, in my heart, coming from a wall to this flexible canvas, I was like, So I experimented with a lot of different mediums and processes of stretching canvas over wood. my street work heavily honors the history of street work, public art, all forms of it. That when I brought it into a gallery space, it was like, wait, I'm not honoring the history of that. So for me, this is a way longer conversation, but for me, as soon as I take and bring it in, I free myself by cutting it. And then I reconnect to my family growing up, old school style seamsters that knew how to look at you and say, oh, you're this size, and come back tomorrow, and there's an outfit for you. Like I grew up with that hand-eye coordination, but I translated it to painting. That now I'm bringing it back in full circle, quilting it, having these two different histories of American quilting, American, what people know as graffiti, but we called it writing. Combining those two histories together and weaving something new, a whole new conversation, a whole new language, another layer of abstracting my own work and presenting it to an indoor, a gallery environment, that history versus just stuffing down in your face of like, oh look, here goes my mural on the street and here goes a segment of it and it's on a canvas. There's already, there's two pieces in the building that are like the pioneers of that genre, that's their place. And what am I trying to say? And I know those people also, so it's kind of really interesting to, like, I've had these conversations with them to really understand where they were at, where they were coming from. I'm like, oh no, I'm not dealing with that at all. So I need to say something completely different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Look at the both arts, and I see the delicate lines here, and the movement of the delicate, and you want to read it, you want to go into it. And then I look at your art, and it's speaking to me more, you know. And then there is a moment as an artist, you are exhausted. You look back and you are exhausted. How do you regenerate and come back to it?
Ooh. Go for it.
So there's, I have this whole metaphor for that.
Yeah.
That it's kind of like, there's all like waveforms, wave patterns of going up and down. And if you think of a long-term wave, that's, you ride this high, and this goes for all walks of life and people. You ride this high, and that's like what you're saying, you just created this piece, you just put it out there. It's guaranteed you're gonna have a low. So what do you do in that low? And so initially I started just to say, oh, hey, I'm in the low, be in the low. What do you want to do? Relax, whatever, you know, like let's just say spa day for yourself, you know? Mm-hmm. But then you were saying about capitalism earlier. So capitalism into it, and you're frustrated. I don't want to be in a low. You're fighting yourself. So I got to a point where, and I know this might be an abstract answer to that, but I got to a point where instead of this long wave, I shorten it. So you have these huge peaks and valleys, and you just have to be a speedboat, and you just skip across the top, and you never have the low, but you respect your personal time. And so when you're out in public, you go, and then when you're at home, everything's off, no outside interference, no business, I'm home, this is my little dojo, I call it, and you rebuild. And you know you have that. You consciously, I consciously know when I step out, I'm engaging with it being in a speedboat. Mm-hmm. And then now I'm home, throw the keys away, I'm chilling. Mm-hmm. So that's how I rejuvenate. There's other ways, you know, nature, taking walks, riding bike, exercise, you know, those things. But on the conscious level, in your center, you have to have that balance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think that nature for me, it's very important, being close to nature, and also like sometimes I just need to take breaks from art. It can be, I mean, are you like always like thinking about art? Yeah.
Well, yeah, you see me
Yeah,
that, and then I'm creating this over here.
Yeah.
But or these, you know, that's what this really is.
Mm-hmm.
Also, This is completely, it has nothing to do with anything, but oh, I'll loop it in somehow, and then I'll make this, but my brain screwing this together and cutting this wood up isn't the same as this. So it's like a little breather, but I'm still going. And then you know that background
Yeah.
is thinking, and then you go, oh, okay, throw that aside, get back over here.
Yeah, I take breaks where I do something completely different. Well, not different, but like I play music sometimes. I connect with the plants. I talk with the plants. I make medicine. I ingest the medicine and of the plants. And I do more like introverted arts residencies, you know, like where I go and I stay in isolation, just by myself. And I create all kinds of rituals, you know, around nature, and I also meditate about the role of artists in the future. Like, what is our role, and how are we going to be a catalyst for change, or how are we going to transform the world that we're getting into? Because we're getting into like a big adventure.
Right.
So how, as artists, we keep the poetry and the magic happening, you know? How do we still are like, oh, you know, that's amazing, or that's so cool. You know, these things, they need to happen, and they happen when you sometimes, I personally, take a break from even being an artist. Like, I have to say, I need to go on in my own psyche and see as a person where I am at, and take care of myself, and then reset and start a new project, a different project. Start, you know. I like to look at what's happening around the world in general, though I don't look very far. I normally look what's happening in my block, in the block where I live, or in the neighborhood, or. But sometimes it's good to see what's happening on a global aspect, you know, because we are going through. I mean, we're gonna be in the metaverse soon. Huh? Seriously, I mean, I'm scared about that. I mean, how are we gonna like?
We'll figure it out.
We'll have to figure it out. So anyway, we're going to a world where like community is gonna be compromised if we don't reactivate the connection, you know,
the human connection.
The human connection. So, and now with COVID, we all experience, you know, like being isolated. How dramatic it is. I mean, except for like the super introverts that were like so happy, but in general, you need human connection, you know. Right. I mean, and I mean, I want to put my mask. Lucha against COVID.
Nice.
I don't know. I mean, yeah, I think we need to reconsider, you know, what the role of artists are in how we see the city too. We were talking about this the other day. I mean, city planners, I mean, we see the city as city planners plan, but artists are transforming the way that we see the city all the time, you know, especially street artists. Right. So we are a big part of the contribution of how the city looks like, and what are the relationships that are happening in the city. So
I want to jump in there, but for our online people and all of our talking about digital world, we're going to cut that off. So do you want to say anything closing before we cut that off? We'll continue this here, but just online. Well, I mean, thank you everyone for listening and for inviting me here. I think of course. I'm sad now that I'm leaving tomorrow. It's been only like less than 2 weeks. Where's the end of the back? But yeah, thank you everybody for listening, and peace. So no, that was on for online. So thank you. That was on for online social stuff. Not when we can say the real. No, what Paz was saying about this transition that we're in, and everybody feels it, and we hear all these different conversations around it, and we've talked about it in the space that I think, especially like mean, I'm glad that we started with that moment when you moved here. That San Francisco is a Bay Area, is a town, it's a place that always is growing and shifting with different industries. I think it's important that, you know, we were saying how we look up. I'm like, oh yeah, you're still here. Oh, you're here. Oh, hey, you know, like that is important that we come together and for once, not that we didn't before, but across communities have open conversations, open dialogue, where we really remember to share and listen, educate and learn. And I think for San Francisco is a great little, you know, we should really be the biggest little city for this to happen in, just so that we can really, because it's big but yet small enough where we can make a change.
Yeah.
And if people, if somehow, you know, the rewards of politics for politicians, they can get their reward, but people in their field can be in the part of the decision making. I think that's really important, especially for the arts, to thrive, because you can have commerce, you can have capitalism, but San Francisco was always, Bay Area was always like this funky town of mix of different people. And if that's gone, then you're just gonna get, like, why even physically be here anymore? Just go digital, you know, just be uploaded.
Yeah.
So I think that's really important.
I loved your enthusiasm when we talked about the old San Francisco, and we, as just driving around non-artists, see smash and grabs happening, boarded up places, dead restaurants. I'm so sorry, I love your enthusiasm. Do you see weeds coming through the cracks? Because we feel that we've lost the 2003 San Francisco, and I feel sad.
So in 91, 92, San Francisco was the same thing. Not different, but 89 earthquake, you had the stock market crash that happened, and I've spoken to different, me practicing what I'm preaching, I've spoke to different restaurant owners, different business types, and they were born and raised in the city, and they were here for that time period. And I was like, you know, it was 93. And they're like, oh yeah, you're right. So what are we gonna do now? You know, if we're not leaving, we can build it. And there's a lot of people who are sitting there going, yeah, what are we gonna do? They're asking the question. But it's about being able to come together to see how we can help one another. And it's not about, if we plan on staying here, it's not about like, oh, if I'm helping you, where's my 10%, my 2%? It's not about that, you know? It will, if your business is thriving, and then this is the part that people have to like get over. If your business is thriving, that then somebody else's business is thriving, now mine is going to thrive. And people here are going to sustain and be able to stay here one way or another. So yeah, right now it looks bleak. It looks crazy. But there's always the ebb and flow and the rebuild. It's just a matter of how is it going to look. And for me, I don't want it to be where, which is kind of where we're going, that, oh, the people who have the money, oh, you don't have it, but she has it, okay. Here, we're just gonna land grab or industry grab, and now this, let's say 10 different neighborhoods that look 10 different ways, they all look the same now. And it's not to blame anyone. It's if there's no action, if there's no coming together for a lot of different reasons, then it doesn't change and it goes a different direction. But everybody in this room, we're here now, and we could come together with ideas, you know, behind the scenes, whatever, to really change the landscape. And it takes the VCs, the private equity, it takes the city funding, the artists, the creators, it takes everybody to really want to figure it out. Because yeah, we are in a capitalist society, and we're not going to rewrite that, you know, anytime soon. So okay, it has to make sense, the bottom line. If that bottom line is covered and realistic, You know, I've sat in on meetings where I've sat in on meetings where I was a muralist and my part was coming at 9, you know, stage 9, but I'm sitting here and I'm listening to stage 2 and 3 and I'm going, oh my God, how many times can a developer say, let's put a coffee shop in? Like, it's not gonna work. Like, if I see it, as you were saying, like, we're out there, if I see, like, and I love coffee shops, but it's like, if I see that that coffee shop goes in, you look great for whatever reason, it's built, everything is open, you look great, okay, you're on to the next development. A year later, that coffee shop is struggling and they're gonna close. Or they ran through their capital and they're gonna close. And then that becomes these little voided pockets, which like kind of happened on like Polk Street, you know, before the pandemic. Like I said, there's a lot of different things, but if people aren't just grabbing and being greedy and looking out for themselves and actually looking out for the city and they care about the city, and I honestly, my enthusiasm believes that if people just hear it, because they just don't know. They're busy. You have kids, you have your business, you have a lot of things in the world that you're here just trying to make that happen. And then if you can get in front of somebody that's here that has a position, you go, oh wait, what? Oh, yeah, I didn't think about that. Bloop. Cool. And I think it's that simple. Just being human, remembering that we're all humans, that we can come together and figure it out.
Yeah, I think that,
I'm sorry. Wrap up to let people to go so we can keep having a conversation. But I just want to say that's such a nice way to wrap up the conversation. Thank you to Apexer and Pause. And to eat and drink, and viewers will be here to ask questions.